All right, hey everybody, Doug Adams here. Welcome back to Run DNA podcast, and we've got a returning guest. Well, not really guest, you're part of the team here, but a returning conversation with Coach Reese, Reese Slobodianuk. I think I got it that time. There we go. So Reese is joining us again, and we got some exciting updates, and we've got some exciting things to talk about, both course and some very exciting things that Reese has done recently here. So we're going to dive into a lot of these topics, talk a lot about ultra training, and even go over some things that didn't necessarily make it into our upcoming ultra training fundamentals course, but are really good, relevant topics of conversation here. So a little additional bonus content coming at you here. So Reese, welcome back.
Thank you, Doug. It's a pleasure. And thank you for the introduction. Yeah, I'm very excited to kind of detail everything that's been going on. It's kind of a great time of the year to have a wonderful ultramarathon performance that happened recently, but also discuss the fundamentals course, how it wraps in. And yeah, knowing that, we weren't able to put everything in my brain into this one couple hour course, I'm very excited to stockpile some of these ideas that we're thinking about and release future courses. So everybody out there, there's a lot more education coming up down the pipeline that we're in on. So if you're a runner, endurance runner, ultra endurance runner, we've got plenty of exciting updates that are going to be dropping over the next few months.
Nice. So, all right, let's get in. You hinted at it, but I got to brag on Reese, and Reese should brag on himself here. But Reese, this past weekend, you just absolutely crushed a 100-miler, and you broke the course record by, was it over or under an hour? Like
right, it was over. It was just over an hour.
Just over an hour. Yeah. Like, yes, it's 100 miles, but it is an hour, and that course record had been since 2009. Is that right?
Yeah.
So 2025 here.
Yep. So to set the scene, this race is called the Kettle Moraine 100. It's out in Wisconsin. It's along the scenic Ice Age Trail, which is over 1,200 miles across the entire state of Wisconsin. It's actually the longest continuous trail housed only within one state. So it's on a section of this course that is both runnable, it's hilly, it's very technical in some spots, it's very well supported. Ornery Mule Racing does a fantastic job with that race. It's been going on since 1996. It's one of the older 100-mile races in the country. And this race has a very colorful history with a bunch of characters, race directors, racers. And the previous long-standing course record was held by a gentleman named Zach Gingrich. I've tried to reach out to him and find a contact for him. I haven't been successful. Tried to pick his brain a couple months ago to see if I could get any extra intel on what he was doing that I could be doing in my training. But in case he happens to be a Run DNA subscriber, Zach Gingrich, it was a pleasure stacking myself up to your record for the past few years. This didn't just happen in one go. It's been years of me not only going to Kettle Moraine High School, living and growing up and running on those trails, but then finding that there's a 100-mile race and spending almost 6 years or so building up to the point where I could run 100 miles and then even think about lowering a 15-year-old record. Didn't think it would happen by an hour, but pushed as hard as I could for the day, and that's what we got.
Nice. All right. You had some gold in there too, right? And this is something I want to highlight because this is one of my soapboxes. You said it took you about 6 years of building up to be able to do this, right? Runners always have these like short-term, like I'm going to run this race in 16 weeks kind of thing. And it's like, no, it takes years to stack up fitness and to get to some of those more ambitious goals. And we got to have a longer-term view of some of that stuff.
And just to highlight that even further, like it's been way longer than 6 years I've been participating in ultra endurance activities. I didn't start racing ultra marathons until about 2018. But before that, before I knew what ultra marathons were, I was spending 6 to 10 hours biking and running on trails on my own since about 2012. So realistically, I want to say that it's probably over a decade in the making of building through training cycles, figuring out what works, and really locking down how to take a course, break it into its components, and then structure a training plan to really prepare myself for those components.
All right, so break it down for us here. Why? Because is this your first attempt at this record, or?
So I've ran the race 3 times.
Yeah,
I've won it 3 times. However, the first time was in about 17 and a half hours. Two
yeah,
years ago, I ran it 15 and a half hours. It was the second
yeah.
fastest time. And then this year ran it 14 hours and 15 minutes. So each year
Okay.
I've been
Yeah.
significantly chipping away at that marker for sure.
So break down the training this time, right? What did you do differently? What do you think contributed to an hour, like over an hour? It's an hour on the race, but it's over like it's an hour and 15 on your own personal record on this course here. So what did you do different? What were the keys? What were some of the things that really helped you to get this big breakthrough kind of performance?
Completely. And we highlighted on the cumulative training effect, right? The year over year over year
Yeah.
of going through injury cycles, training cycles, trying to navigate the highs and lows. That's important. So not only I'm 2 years, 3 years fitter and stronger, but there's two big things that I attribute to the day. One of them is going to be my cooling strategies,
Mm.
as far as learning how to tolerate heat during training and doing heat training, but also really paying attention to cooling on the day. As far as training goes, the biggest thing that has been the performance enhancement this year has been really training the downhills. It's something that
Mm.
has been it's starting to become more highlighted in the ultra running community. Not only do we need to train uphill intervals because we're going to be handling uphills, but we do need to prepare the legs for downhills. And if anybody out there has run an ultra marathon, you know that your quads start barking at you pretty early on in the race, and you push through it. I kept telling a lot of people during the race as well as after the race, I could push the downhills as hard as I want, and that's actually how I probably gained that hour, was because my legs would just handle it, you know?
Mm.
So, and that's something leading up to the course. I mean, that's
Yeah.
something that we really highlight in there too, is how much of downhill training do we do? When do we put it in a training program? How do we structure it in an overall macro cycle so that way we're touching on all the important variables: uphills, flats, downhills, running economy, but then training your body to be durable, because we don't need a lot of downhill stimulus,
Yeah.
but putting it right at the key moment of your ultra prep could make or break or be a huge contributing factor to your success.
Yeah, that was this is kind of a course preview. This was the fun part of it too. My part of my role in the course was really looking at some of the like the biomechanics of ultra running and things there, but where you and I intersected a bit was the uphill and downhill running aspect of it. And we found a pretty cool study that what you're alluding to, that if you do a downhill training stimulus, there's a certain period of time that you're going to see perceived benefits, and subsequent downhill training efforts are significantly lower for pain, for muscle damage, for soreness after it. So you're going to have to check out the course to see that study and to see what that training interval is there. But being very like that was a cool part of this course, taking the science and applying it to the practical aspect of it to say, should I be doing it? We talked about the different personas of the ultras, like which type of ultra runner should run downhill. You're obviously what we were calling like a peak performer, right? Like, and that's one of the personas that we talk about in the course. But it makes very much sense for you to do some of this training. But does it make sense for somebody else? And how much do they do? How often? And those are some really practical applications from the course that were really great. Now, we'll just kind of give you that little teaser of it. So you're going to have to check out the course for the full thing. But obviously, it worked for you here because you said you probably made up a bunch of time just on the downhill.
Completely. And my recovery is very much expedited. My legs feel amazing. Besides, one little thing that we were mentioning earlier was just a turned ankle about 60 miles into the race, and didn't hurt to continue running on. So I did, but it was a turn that made me go, whoa, that could have been bad. That now is being a little bit of a nag. But if anybody out there has run an ultramarathon, you know that the next day going up and down stairs is going to be challenging because your quads are barking at you. And I'm happy to say that, the quads were not the limiting factor of the day. all things being equal, there's a lot of variables in ultra running, right? There's not only how you prepare your musculoskeletal system, but mental strategies, hydration, fueling, cooling, motivation, all of those things. Many of which we're going to cover in that first course. Many of which are to be later dissected on in future courses. But all things being equal, the downhill work really made a difference. And what's really interesting too is with those studies that we were mentioning, there's not only crossover between running downhills and then being more durable for downhills. As far as leg stiffness goes, if you're a road marathoner, or if you're a 5K or a 10K half marathoner, if you're running a flat race and you incorporate even just a little bit of downhill stimulus, you can increase the stiffness of your legs, therefore increasing your running economy. Couple that with working on your gait mechanics, and you can see incredible performance improvements. Just as I'm experiencing right now. I mean, it's really been revolutionary this past training block.
So you're saying there's things that runners can do that don't involve running that can improve their performance?
I know it sounds revolutionary,
what?
Right?
Hold on. Like, let's everyone let that sink in for a second here. A little jumping or a little I guess running downhill is running, but there's things that don't involve just piling more miles on or more laps around the track that can translate into performance there. So just making sure people heard that and understood that. So, all right, two things from that, what you were just saying. I want to go back to what does life look like after an ultra, and what, kind of a realistic and idealistic planning is for a return to run and those types of things. But we kind of breezed over the cooling aspect of it, your cooling strategy. Can you give a little more specifics about what does it mean? Where did you start a little bit with there? How much should people be looking at it if they're in our personas that we talked about? Who should be doing heat acclimation? Who should, not worry about it? And what does that look like in a general sense there?
Completely. And I want to say that this is more marginal gain for a lot of people, right? I would much rather have people focus on their training, focus on their fueling, as well as their mental strategies to get them through the race, which is why it's not going to be in this first course. It's going to be in a future course. But to give you a good preview of what I did and how I was handling it is heat training is kind of a two-parter. So I consider it heat tolerance as well as heat management. So heat tolerance is something that we build during training. Learning to become an efficient sweater are some of the adaptations that we can get from getting really warm in our training. Learning how to just mentally tolerate the uncomfortability of being warm and still moving. But also there's a lot of cool other physiological things that happen with the body, such as an increase in blood plasma and hematocrit density, which really helps endurance or aerobic performance itself. So for me, what that looked like is I am actually sitting right next to my indoor trainer here in our sunroom, which gets very warm in the middle of the day. I would put on sometimes tights, most oftentimes a really heavy sweatshirt, and then my Columbia titanium jacket on top of that. I'd put both hoods up and I'd be spinning at a really easy wattage for me physically, though I would notice that my heart rate would spike up because of the extra demand on my system. So really just got hot, got a little bit uncomfortable, but not dangerously uncomfortable to the point where I'm about to pass out. And that was a lot of my heat tolerance training was on the bike. Mm-hmm. Now, heat management all comes during the day, how we cool ourselves. And that's really any way that you can get cool, is fine by me. So my race strategy was always make sure that I'm wet, that I have a cold ice bandana on me at any point that I can. Anywhere that had clean ice, I was putting clean ice in my mouth. I was putting ice in my bottles. So that way I could not only topically cool, but also internally cool with the colder liquids I was ingesting. A lot of that is stuff that ultra runners are doing. However, I think we can take it to the next degree to make sure that everybody has an ice bandana with them while they're running. And I want to give a big shout out. I actually used her name's Loretta. She has her own ice bandanas that I used for the race, and
Oh,
they were
really?
phenomenal. So I think if you're an ultra runner and you're in even a moderately warm ultra, whether that's mid 50s to 60s and above, if you don't have an ice bandana on at some point, you're not going to be able to push as hard just
Is
because of
that
how much
literally a
thermoregulation you're going to have to do.
bandana that just holds ice, or is it a special type of material, or what is it there?
So this was just a bandana that has a pocket sewn on the back that you can pour ice into and then wrap it around your neck. And this one
Yeah.
was nice and tight. It was all against my neck and my upper back for most of the day. So I didn't have to deal with a lot of the jangling that can happen with like
Okay.
really big ice bandanas. But yeah, it's a bandana that you tie around your neck.
Yeah.
A lot of people have ice hats. You can do an ice hat. People stuff ice into their vests, their hydration vests, down their shorts. I should say too, a lot of the times I would just take ice and pour it down my shirt and just let it I always tuck in my shirt so the ice would just collect against my core. And that was another way that I cooled myself off during the day. So some of those photos that are out there online make it look like I have a good sized belly from some ice jangling around. It's pretty awesome.
It's funny. It's a really interesting point, right? And I used to have a statistic in my head, and I quick looked while you were chatting a little bit there, and I couldn't find it. But how much of our energy is used for heat dissipation and core temperature regulation while running? And I do remember that our body is only about 20 to 25% efficient. So when we are creating energy and moving forward, we're only about 20 to 25% of that energy goes to forward propulsion, and 75% is dissipated in heat. So heat regulation does play a big aspect in it, but it would be interesting. I wish there was a statistic, and maybe somebody knows this. And if you're listening, please share it or comment or let us know. But I wish there's a statistic to say for every degree that you can lower your external skin temperature or your core temperature, it's going to let you run X% faster or X less calories per mile to do it there, because a lot of our energy does go into heat dissipation when we run. I wish I had a cool stat on that. And so if somebody has it, please let us know. But I do know that we're only about 25% efficient, and we are releasing a lot of heat. So when you run for 100 miles, that really adds up.
Completely. I think another huge benefit, not only physiologically what ice can do for our bodies in creating or managing the creation of energy, propelling ourselves forward, pushing harder, but I would have a visceral feeling of when I was too warm, being
Yes.
foggy brained, being cloudy, just thinking like, man, I'm overcooking. And the second you get cold, it's like the curtain is drawn and you can see clear again. And keeping your mentality during such a long race is huge. It's critically important because at no point in a race am I not thinking about what I need, whether it's another gel or more hydration, or maybe I need to be cooling more, or hey, is there a rock coming up? When's the next aid station? What hurts on me? Am I pushing too hard? What's up next on course? At multiple points during the race, I'm trying to check in with myself and where I'm at to understand and problem solve before problems even become an issue. So if I'm foggy brained because I'm overheating, now I'm not thinking about the other ancillary things that I need to be paying attention to in order to keep myself moving as fast as I can. Right. So if we can keep ourselves cool, now we have better thought process.
Reduce the variables.
Exactly. And you can chip away at those intervals or those variables before they stack up. I think that's a big impact of ice.
That's great. Yeah. One of those things that I remember, the only longer course stuff when I did 70.3 distance for triathlon, I remember I hadn't done a lot of races that offered ice on it. And I remember just stuffing my jersey with ice on that run and feeling like, oh, like there's a burst of energy. Like you said, you're like, oh, okay, I can go now here. Like it felt great. Whether it's the mental or the physical side, I remember knocking off 30 seconds per mile within 5 minutes of having that ice. I just had it everywhere and it felt great with it. So that's a big aspect of it too. Not something that non-ultra runners might put a lot of emphasis on. But my one study, I always talk about this, and this is one of my like cheat codes. that I talk about is pre-cooling as well. So they did this Houston marathon. I don't know if they did it for the half or for the full, but they had this Houston marathon group and they gave them slushies, like 7-Eleven slushies before the race. And the group that had, and then they gave another group a something that had the same type of sugar content. So they had the equivalent calories and things. And they looked at, and the group with the slushy was way, like, performance wise, much better. So it was pretty cool. And so I will often bring freeze pops for the kids before they have a race or before they have a baseball game or something, and it cools them down a bit, and it does seem to really make a big difference.
Completely. Yeah, I think those are all great ideas and something that we should all, like, whether we're doing 5Ks or ultra marathons, should absolutely pay attention to. Especially
Yeah.
too, I think the idea of a warm race is actually a lot cooler than people think. I think a lot of the studies say that like mid 40s, low 40s is like ideal temperatures as far as
55.
like temperature regulation.
55 is the ideal running temperature.
Yep. So anything north of 55, like have some sort of pre-cooling strategy. I think that's going to be a big difference for a lot of athletes out there.
That is one of the cool statistics. Like for every degree above or below 55, there's an increased resistance to running that basically slows you down 1 second per mile per degree. So if you could run a 10-minute pace at 55 at 10 degrees warmer than that, you're going to run a 10-10 pace at the same energy expenditure there. So it has almost a 1 second per degree correlation. Now there's other things like humidity that you have to take into effect and things too, but that's something to keep in mind when people are running, especially we're filming this in summer when it's pretty hot. Right now, I know I just had a nice hot, steamy 95% humidity and 75-degree run this morning that did not feel great. So give yourself a little grace as well when you're running in those hot temperatures.
Completely.
Yes. All right. So let's go back now. Let's jump into because this is content, the cooling wasn't in the course, but we didn't really talk about getting back and post-race, getting back to training. So we talked about using races for training efforts, but not using a full race effort for them. But now talk to us about what are some best practices and what are you doing after your race for how long you're taking off for, how long are you taking until you get back to normal training activity?
Okay, first, let's assume that an athlete finishes an ultra and they don't have a traumatic or an overuse injury that they're battling with, right? Because I think the contingency there is, hey, like definitely don't get back to activity if you currently still have a pain that is altering your running mechanics or could be worsened by more running. So caveat there. You do an ultra marathon, you come back, you're relatively unscathed, maybe some muscle soreness. What the heck do we do? What do I tell my athletes as a coach are good practices? The first one is going to be sleep. Of course, increase your sleep as much as you can. Definitely don't be getting up too early. Go to bed. Make sure you're not, on your phones for too long before bedtime. Like make sure that sleep hygiene is there because sleep is going to be the number one performance recovery tool for anybody out there. It's just amazing to me as I recover every night that I get a night of sleep. Give it like 8.5 or 9 hours. Some nights have been 10 hours because I'm really trying to increase the amount of sleep that I have after this 100-mile race. It's a drastic difference with how I feel from day to day. So sleep, of course. Besides sleep, eating whole, nutritious foods, making sure you're getting enough protein, whole foods fats, as well as carbohydrates, making sure that your body has the building blocks to then repair your tissues is going to be critical. For everybody out there, consult your doctor first, but I'm a huge fan of multivitamins just as an insurance policy to make sure that we have those micronutrients to, again, build those tissues. So make sure that you're giving your body all the fuel and all the micronutrients necessary to make those changes while you're sleeping. Beyond that, take it easy. Active recovery is great. Walking is hugely fantastic for recovery and getting blood flow and getting fluid circulating, especially in puffy or swollen legs that have a little bit of inflammation after a big effort. other ancillary things. If you can hop on the foam roller, hop on the foam roller. Of course, we don't want there to be pain with the foam roller, so make sure that there's no pains that you're still experiencing. Use those boots. I actually just got a pair of boots, and when I'm chilling at night with my feet up, I'm putting the boots on to just help, passive recovery and circulate some of the fluid. I forgot the brand of them, but they are fantastic and they're fairly inexpensive. So there are options, but Normatec is another big one that's out there. Let's see, what else? I always advise people when you're coming back, first and foremost, like the body needs to be in a good spot to return back to running. But again, I don't think that we can underestimate the power of the mind. There's a lot of damage that happens in an ultramarathon that is not physical. It could be, part of the neuroendocrine system, the hormonal system, all of these chemical influences, I guess we could say, that we can't necessarily perceive through muscle damage could still be affecting us. So some of my athletes are very type A and they're like, I'm not sore. I want to get back to training. I have this other goal that's coming up. Maybe it's coming up pretty quick. I feel like I need to be getting back after it. And it's like, well, let's take a step back. Do you want to be getting back after it right now? Are you excited to go running? Are you eager to get back out there and crush the pavement? Now, as runners, we are very excited to be outside and to be getting our miles in. So if at any point you're like, man, I don't want to go for this run, but I have to because it's on the calendar, that's a big sign that like, hey, maybe you need a little bit more recovery. Your muscles might feel good, but some of those other factors that we just mentioned might still be awry. So typically, I'll tell my athletes, at least for the week, we're not going to be training, but be physically active. Go for walks, go paddle boarding, work out your upper body. It's only been 4 days post 100-miler for me. And I told my fiance earlier this morning, I was like, I'm just itching to like get out of a chair and do something now. So of course I'm going to be getting back to some range of motion type of work, as well as a little bit more strength training, core training. This is particularly the time that I really like to work on some of those little nagging injuries that pop up during the training cycle. Of course, they're not plaguing me right now because I've spent a couple days recovering. But I know that if I do return back too quick, there might be a chance that those aches and pains might start to pop back up again. So no better time to address those than when you're feeling healthy. So I have a list in my head of things that I need to work on with my strength training as far as my weak links go. And I will start slowly incorporating some of that into very mild strength training routines. Now, by no means by strength training do I mean, go out and try to PR your squat max or go rip some deadlifts, but do some foundational movements under a little bit lighter loads, maybe still weighted, and get some range of motion back in the tissue so that we can prepare them for another training block.
So in marathon training, right, one of the, and just shorter distance, 5K, 10K, half marathon, marathon, after a race where you're putting in a really hard effort and you're able to give it all out, the general rule of thumb is no intense training for a day per mile of the race. That works well for a marathon, right? That works well for a 5K even, or a 10K, where you say, hey, you did a 5K, you probably need to take at least 3 days off of intense running. So you don't want to go slam a track workout 2 days after a 5K if you gave a hard effort with it there. After a marathon, you're going to take 7 to 10 days off of running. You're going to get back to some easy running in the 10 to 14 day range. Then you're just going to do more base training. And then you might start to do some easy tempo stuff at about that 3.5, 4 week mark outside of the race. What about for ultra? Because if you wait 100 days to do any intensity, you're eating into a good bit of your year here. So I think we've destroyed my nice, simple 1 day per mile of the race here. But what is an acceptable time before you would start doing maybe some intensity again?
Completely. By all means, it's individual, and that day per mile race works really well for beginning as well as like moderate level marathoners,
Mhm.
for sure. Even some advanced marathoners, if you need to take a month off afterwards because some of the injuries present in the body, or because your mental, emotional, and willingness to go out and enjoy running again has fallen lackluster, that's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. What we typically see in ultra endurance races is the demand on the body is different. We don't experience quite the amount of immediate impact from the concrete because the trail surface is a little bit softer. So trails typically do beat up the body in different ways than road running does. Trails typically tend to be more muscular pains, quads, hamstrings, glutes, because of the inclines, the declines, all of that. So again, with it being individual, really take stock of what's your training age? What is your experience level? This isn't the first 100 miler that I've ran. I've had some lengthier recoveries that are about like 3 to 4 weeks before I get back to like any intense training. And every race is going to be different. This race, I'm a little bit beat up. So nursing one little injury that happened from the turned ankle that I mentioned before. Other than that, I'm excited to get out and race, but I know that like, hey, I need to be firing on all cylinders. I'm going to give my body the extra rest and recovery. Maybe I'll do some more cross training. So in this case, for most individuals running 100 miles, I would at least like to see about 2 weeks of no intense training. Maybe within that 2 weeks, like we're getting back up to running, like you mentioned, slow running and whatnot, but really taking stock with athletes to say, hey, you've been doing some easy zone 1 recovery or zone 2 type of runs the past couple of days. How's your body feeling? Do you experience any aches or pains? What's your mind telling you? What's your heart rate response? And really kind of assessing when an athlete should then pick up the intensity. When intensity does start, we're not going to launch right back into long intervals by any means. We might do quicker, shorter strides or pickups. We might do them uphill because uphill running, lessens the impact forces. It's a little bit easier on the hamstrings as well, as opposed to flat running. So for somebody that has not run with much velocity after a low velocity 100-mile race, we might want to do that just to start, just to get the legs kind of cycling through their gears again. I think we released, gear work on Instagram. It was this little Instagram reel where I really detailed, hey, as ultra runners, we should be working on not only our slow race pace gears, 100-mile race pace gears, but our faster pace work. And when we spend so much time at that slower gear and then have a lot of recovery on the back end, the body's not used to the biomechanics of that quicker running. And that's where doing some of that shorter, quicker 30-second, 5 by 30-second strides really works in, because now we're kind of getting the body back into the swing of like, oh yeah, this is what it feels like to be moving this quick. This is what the hips and the knees should be doing. A lot of individuals out there probably experience, like I do, after not running fast for a long time, you just feel uncoordinated running quicker again after 100 miles. So the intensity definitely is gradual to start and then builds up as we keep assessing with that athlete any injuries, anything wrong mentally, those types of things. So long-winded way of saying it's individual, but those are some of the ways that I track my athletes to make sure that like, hey, intensity is now appropriate, but we're not going to launch back into hard intensity. We're going to start sprinkling it in and then gradually build out.
Yeah, it supports my theory like that. It would be nice just to say day for mile type thing here, but my theory is largely based off of people's subjective report that after a Ironman, people are less sore than they are after a marathon. And if you know the events, an Ironman includes a marathon. So it's kind of funny, like, why would you be less sore after a marathon when you biked 112 miles before it? And it's because the relative intensity during the race, I think, has the biggest predictor of how quick you can bounce back from it there. A 5K, you're going to be darn near 100%, right? 10K, you might be at 97%. A marathon, you might still be at 91, 92% of, if we can equate that to your VO2 max or whatever, but your intensity is going to be high. But an ultra, you're not going to be at even in the 90s, you're going to be in the high 60s, low 70s of like intensity, relatively speaking here. So you don't have to have the 1-to-1. It might be like a 1-to-2 type ratio here. For every 2 miles of the race, you take a day off. Or if you really went hard and had some nagging injuries, or it might be every 4 miles or so, based off of how intense it is for you there. So, but it's highly individualized, like you say. And I really liked what you said earlier, need versus want to run. That is a really crucial part here. Do I feel like I need to go for a run, or do I feel like if I don't go for a run right now, like I'm just going to be pulling my hair out, other than bald guys like me here. So yes, I think that is a great way to do it. So more great content, Reese. We could probably talk about lots of other topics, all about ultras and training and things like that. But luckily, we are putting a lot of it together in one place in the course coming up here. That's going to be, depending on when you're listening to this, it's either already out or coming out shortly here. So make sure you're looking for the Ultra Training Fundamentals on rundna.com. Reese, any other parting thoughts or words or things before we wrap this up and hopefully see people on the course side of things on the back side of this?
Completely. I just wanted to thank you for giving me the platform to speak my mind and my training philosophy and highlight some of my achievements. It's definitely an honor of mine. To the listeners out there, I love talking about this stuff. Please hit me up on Instagram. Look up Run Coach Reese. I'm on there. Facebook, Reese Slobodianuk. Please get in contact because, like Doug mentioned, we mentioned this last podcast too, but this is a course to benefit the coaches and benefit the athletes. I only want to talk about what people want to listen to and what can help your athletes or you as an athlete. So please get in contact and let us know what you want to hear. Take the course. Would love to hear it all.
Yes. Awesome. Well, Reese, thank you for joining us here. Thank you all for listening. And if you want to be kept up to date with when these courses are available and how to get access to that, make sure you head over to rundna.com, scroll to the bottom, sign up for the newsletter. That's a great way to get releases of this podcast, updates, extra bonus content. So make sure you're checking that out too, and appreciate you all listening.
Thank you so much, Doug.
Like what you hear? Leave a review of the show wherever you listen, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Run DNA helps runners and running specialists through education and technology to identify each runner's unique injury profile to avoid setbacks and maximize results. The Run DNA podcast is produced by Ace Running LLC. The Run DNA podcast is intended for educational purposes only. No clinical decision-making should be based solely on one source. While care is taken to ensure accuracy, factual errors can occur. Always seek the guidance of qualified medical professionals before making healthcare decisions. Find us online at rundna.com.